The Daimajin Trilogy has always been a trilogy that's been on my watch list for a little while, or mainly just, Daimajin 1. I love kaiju movies, and mix that with a samurai movie, and I'm down for whatever. Now, all three of these films were made back to back to back as kind of one movie, and then kind of broken up into 3 films, all clocking in at under 90 minutes, so let's just power through another trilogy set. The first Daimajin film, Daimajin, released in 1996, follows a small town in the mix of a lordship coup. The prince and princess, along with their guardian, flee for safety during the coup, living near a large statue that the town folks believe is a god. After 10 years, the brutal lord finds the hidden prince and princess, and through his oppressive brutality, the statue comes to life and kaiju mayhem begins to happen. Most of the time with these kaiju films, they focus a lot on the human element to kind of save them from more of the kaiju parts of the film. In my past experiences, these storylines are often kind of amount to nothing more than to kind of just get to that creature carnage. That's not really the case here. The film has a compelling story to start with. The film wastes no time and throws you in the middle of a violent overthrow, establishing motives and characters quickly and effectively. The film looks gorgeous and is well shot, which immediately pulled me in and kind of impressed me. The costumes look great despite some obvious fake top knots, and in the first act I honestly just forgot this was even a kaiju movie as I was so wrapped up into the political chess game that was this coup. There's a real sense of danger for the prince and princess, and the action is handled pretty well. However, the film then comes to a grinding halt. We have a really good, impactful opener that leads into an extended second act that really does a whole lot of nothing. It technically pushes the plot along in the sense that you see the main characters do a few things, but most of what is here is just amounts to very little of anything. Characters don't feel like they really grow any more than that wasn't in the first act, besides the passage of time where they obviously grow up. There is a passage of time that feels kind of unbelievable if it wasn't blatantly telling you that. The level of hardship or the iron fist reign of the new lord doesn't really feel like it's taken much of a toll, because nothing in the middle of this act is really explored or expanded upon in that sense of how the lord is controlling these people. Honestly, the plot kind of boils down into one of those films that you could honestly just watch the first act, leave for the second half, come back for the climax, and you know exactly what's happening. It's been a while since I've seen a film start off this strong and then just lose all momentum and steam as it continued on. The last act, of course, is the kaiju part, but honestly it feels like there's no weight here. It feels like oh yeah, duh, we're a kaiju movie, I totally forgot. Well, yeah, let's get that going now. While the kaiju does look cool and there's some honestly really impressive green screen considering the time of this film, it just doesn't amount to anything because the film dropped the ball on getting us here. The monster just helps wrap up the movie very quickly without giving us a very satisfying ending. Yes, the monster is wrecking stuff and it's cool, but it's meaningless because I'm not invested at all in the story anymore because the film gave me so little to cling on to in the middle. And like, I know what's going to happen once the statue comes to life because it's clearly here to just clean up the mess of the narrative, but it just left me feeling kind of frustrated with the story. You had me really hooked, but you let me go, to use fishing terms. I don't know, 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10, good opener, lost its momentum. Return of Daimajin, the second film in the Daimajin Trilogy, also released in 1966, which according to the IMDb trivia, the 3 films were made at the same time but released different years, but everything I see says 66, so I don't really know what's going on there, but basically it's the same film as the first one. The film follows a small lakeside town when a evil warlord comes in and brutally takes it over. The remaining townfolk pray to their god, Daimajin, to save them, and well, yeah, it's the same thing as the first film. It's kind of like the Lego versus Mega Bloks argument where it's the same thing, but let's be honest, Legos are better. And Return of Daimajin is clearly the Mega Bloks. The film has the same narrative structure as the first film, even kind of faltering in that second act like the first film. I mean, look how similar these two clips are. I literally thought it was reused from the first film and the second. But unlike the first film where it had a compelling opener, that's not really the case here. The film meanders from plot beat to plot beat trying to get to the headliner Daimajin, which only takes up like 10 to 15 minutes of screen time. This time around though, I will kind of applaud the film for trying to be a bit more ambitious with its special effects, but the green screen is much more noticeable this time around. Practically though, there's a lot of cool practical effects that were pretty interesting on how they were done. While it may be ambitious and there were some good ideas in this final act, it's kind of in service of nothing. Again, it took so long to get here with nothing for me to care about or to latch onto that when the destruction comes, it's just kind of here, I guess. It's so close to the original story that it's predictable and kind of feels like I just watched it, which made the runtime drag even more, even though it's technically shorter than the first film. Very early on, I was just like, are they just doing the same thing as the first film? And yeah, pretty much, they just totally copied their homework. Sure, they changed a little bit, but it would be pretty easy to just content ID it. There's some cool visual moments toward the end. There's definitely some cool poster shots for sure. I do feel like the action isn't handled as well as the first one personally. This feels more like actors with toy swords than trained swordsmen. Not saying the first film was any Kurosawa film, but there is a noticeable choreography difference between the two. I get the general theme that these films are going for, but I do kind of feel like they have a bit of an identity crisis where they don't know if they want to be a samurai film or a kaiju film, and instead of trying to blend both, they feel like just two different halves that are half-assed. And I'm giving this one a 3 out of 10. So far, this has been pretty disappointing, so I'm hoping the third one can kind of pull it together for me.
I killed it, it's murder.
Finally, the last Daimajin film in the set, Wrath of Daimajin, released in 1966, follows a small village when a warlord enslaves their loggers, closing in on the village. Children from the village try to sneak out and help their captive fathers free. Then wham bam, thank you Stone God of Japan, the Daimajin shows up to enact revenge on those who do wrong to his worshippers. While there's a lot of similarities in the overall story, they do kind of do enough here to differentiate them from the other two, to make it not just feel like Groundhog's Day over and over. The film this time actually opens with Daimajin, and I'm like, oh hell yeah, let's go boy! Then it's gone until the end. I think the thing that bothers me with all three of these films is that the main stories feel like a different movie, and then the kaiju scenes are just kind of stapled onto it. Sure, the Daimajin statue is shown throughout the film or the trilogy, it's referenced a lot, but it does kind of feel like it's only here to show up to kick ass and close the story out without having like a really satisfying resolution. I guess that's just kind of the satisfying part, is watching the monster kill all the bad people, but when the overarching plot doesn't really do much to solidify their villains, this film also suffering from the same story structure problems that I had with the other two films, where it's just too long of a lull before the narrative picks back up. It can kind of just leave like a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, where it's like, I just don't feel like I got much out of this. We just spend too much time getting to the end of these films, where I feel like they might have been a lot better if they were just like 40 minutes apiece. All three films have decent setups, but kind of fumble the way they get to the finale. The film also kind of has a more childish nature to it, which I guess kind of makes sense considering the main cast are children, but it definitely leans into being like something more for kids compared to the other two. I'm saying this mainly because there are just, for me, some failed attempts at humor. I will say this though, this film was willing to be even more experimental, which went a long way when it did come up. There are some dream sequences. The film attempts Daimajin to actually interact with people other than just green screen. Those scenes are kind of goofy and fun, but they're refreshing compared to the other two. Also, having snow makes a lot of the scenery pop and allows for some cool shots with Daimajin, even if it's not really scaled properly. Like, gosh darn, those flakes would be like the size of a tennis shoe for us. There's also a weird scene with a narrator that never really comes back. It just felt completely unnecessary and out of nowhere. Also, there's a fun random jump cut around 45 minutes in or so. I don't know why jump cuts are just so jarring to me in films, but like, I just always find them jarring and kind of funny. A final thing I noticed is that it seems like all three films use the same one sound effect for Daimajin walking. Still, at the end though, I just don't have a lot to say about this one. It's a 4 out of 10. I enjoyed it more than Return, but I honestly just am really disappointed with this entire trilogy. I was hoping for something more interesting and fun. I love kaiju movies. I love samurai movies. They're two genres that I just am always down for. And you'd think melding the two together, it would be a match made in celluloid heaven, but here we are. I can finally cross them off my list, and now I don't feel too bad about not getting the Arrow video box set of the trilogy, so cool. Bye.